our special acknowledgements, recognition of our retiring PTO and PO presidents. Mrs. Boyle.
Good evening. We are grateful for our parent organizations in RIDE and for those who step up to lead them. Tonight, we recognize and thank the PTO and PO presidents who are completing their terms after generously giving of themselves in service to our schools. These volunteers lead the parent organizations of the RIDE City Schools. They partner with the superintendent and the principals and connect with and organize other parents to help enhance the quality of each child's educational experience in so many ways. The parent organizations raise funds and provide incredibly generous gifts to the district to support cultural enrichment, enhance curriculum through events like field trips and author visits, provide opportunities throughout the year to show appreciation to our faculty and staff, technology and classroom resources, playground and athletic equipment, scholarships, awards, and much more. They regularly communicate to keep parents apprised of the many events happening within the schools. They plan and throw events and bring our school communities together to build incredible school spirit, tongue twister for some reason, among students and parents. They collaborate with school administrators, faculty, and other staff, and the Board of Education in ways that help RISE stand out as a community that values education and supports our schools and students. On behalf of the board and the entire district, I extend a hearty thank you to the following. Please come forward when I call your name to accept a small token of our deep appreciation for all you have contributed to our school community. Some folks couldn't make it, but I'm going to call their name anyway. Ellen Saya, Daniela Kivo, Laura Fry, Valerie Lapham, Chrissy Duggan, Carol Thigpen, and Kayla Bird. Thank you all, and now it's time for a photo. Look at the seal.
One giant step forward, stay your screens. It's perfect. Ready? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Okay, we'll continue on now with the report of the superintendent. Dr. Burney.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us for our June 18th Board of Education meeting. Tonight, we are recognizing our retiring PO heads, as well as honoring 2 retiring Board of Education members, Chris Repetto and Kelsey Johnson. Unless our other board members feel left out, we also have certificates of recognition from the Westchester Putnam School Boards Association in appreciation of all of your service. And the executive director is actually here too. The board will be meeting on Monday, June 24th at 6:30 p.m., but there will be no public session. We will hold the board's annual reorganization meeting on July 11th. The senior class prom took place this past Friday at the Mamaroneck Beach and Yacht Club. You may recall that the weather was quite ominous on Friday afternoon. There was a fair amount of both humidity and tension leading up to the kids getting on the buses. Almost all of the students had made it off the buses at the yacht club when the skies opened up. After a heavy downpour and thunder, the weather cleared up and behaved itself, allowing the kids to take some nice sunset pictures. Big thank you to the parent and teacher volunteers who helped make it a special occasion for our seniors. And on Friday, we will hold the 93rd annual Rye High School graduation in Nugent Stadium. This is the third year of holding graduation on Friday evening, which in the past has resulted in a much appreciated reduction in the on-field temperature. That will not be the case this year. Given that the weather forecast is for a 90-degree day, we have arranged for some temperature mitigation items. I will not share what those are, but Gabby Caruccio has been on the case. Things that will help reduce the temperature and improve the airflow in the field. I would be remiss if I didn't note the other celebrations taking place next week. Osborne School's 5th grade moving up is next Monday. Rye Middle School 8th graders have their moving up ceremony next Tuesday in the morning. And Midland and Milton's 5th grade moving ups are both Tuesday. On Wednesday the 26th, we will hold our annual closing ceremony, the official start of summer for our teachers and staff. I want to wish everyone a wonderful summer full of the things they like best, be it travel, catching up with family and friends, or just lazing around the backyard with a good book. And that concludes my report for this evening.
I'm not sure how we got to this point here. Fast. Here we are. All right. So presentation and discussion number 1 for athletic facilities update. Dr. Byrne.
Okay, so we have some folks assisting. I'd like to just kick it off and share that tonight's presentation is the result of a significant amount of study into our athletics facilities. This is part of our regular short and long-term budget planning, but also it's part of our efforts that we promised to the community with regard to upkeep of our facilities when the community approved the $79.9 million capital project. But as always, we begin with all of our work here in the school district with the Rye commitment, because we know that when we make these promises to our students about their instructional program and to the community about the use of resources and communication, that these kinds of conversations like we're having tonight speak to that and speak to the tenets of the Rye commitment. So I'll just give a little context for tonight's presentation, and then I'm going to turn it to Rob Gamigliano and Susan Reed-DeLay, and we'll take it from there. So as part of this regular financial planning process, we conducted a full evaluation of all of our athletics facilities. Obviously, we know that field space and athletic facilities have been a big topic of conversation in the city over the past few months, particularly in earnest over the past few months. And so what we've done is engaged with some outside experts, looked at every single one of our facilities, and you'll hear about the criteria that was used and the process that we engaged in. We will present what is possible for our athletic facilities in support of our instructional and extracurricular programming. So we may have a facility that looks a certain way today, but what could it be? And there's a couple of different options at each of the facilities. I want to emphasize this. No decisions or plans have been made, none whatsoever, other than to present this to the board and the community tonight. These are options that, as part of our long-term planning and conversation, are good options for us to be discussing and for the board to be considering as we move forward. Again, no decisions have been made, no plans have been put in place, and these are conceptual options, and we worked with our outside consultants to get cost estimates. And so these are June 2024 cost estimates of these conceptual ideas. So that being said, I'm going to let you guys take it away.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for that introduction. As the Director of Facilities, I think it's important to constantly assess the condition of all our facilities and working with multiple departments, in this case, with Susan Reed DeLay, her input on vision for what some of these spaces can be was included, and I am constantly evaluating some maintenance issues and where budgetary expenses have to be directed, and that's all incorporated in the self-evaluation criteria. So we're looking at the current condition, what needs to be done, what might be a code-driven health and safety issue that we can that we're going to be forced to address or should address for just good planning and prudence. And then looking at the existing use of how these spaces are used, and is there any opportunity for some kind of change? If we were to make an improvement, what could be, if there's a repair needed, can we change the way we look at it and actually make a slight change, and we actually can kill two birds with one stone? So any change, any improvement, any installation you have to consider the initial cost and the ongoing investment. I always give the example of buying a car and never changing the oil. No one would do that, so we have to do that with all our facilities. So what is that oil change going to cost us? And again, the added benefit. So how can this improve space or very well-maintained space? How does that give us, how does that affect students? Because that's what it ultimately revolves around. So that was the criteria that we used. So here's a list. It's a mix of current projects that are completed, and ones that we looked at that are currently under use and in prioritization of what we really need to address sooner than later. So Nugent Stadium, you can see that was completed during the heart of COVID, and it's currently in use and functioning and maintained and very well utilized. The three items which we'll touch upon in a slide coming up is the wrestling room, softball field, and Wright High School gym, as well as all our interior spaces at all the elementary schools. So we're looking at the inside and the outside. So we were pretty comprehensive with all our walkthroughs and rainy days, muddy days, we walked the fields and our gyms. So here, through the support of the last budget process, the community's entrusted us with these three projects, which are ongoing. The wrestling room is being painted as we speak. There was a lot of steps that we were able to kind of put in motion in advance, just having everyone on standby. And once we had the okay, we were able to move forward. So the wrestling room is the removal of all the worn out mats and pads. Those were thrown out. I think the day after the budget passed, we had a 30-yard dumpster with the old mats, so everyone was excited to get rid of that. It also speaks to the need for the upgraded ventilation. The air conditioning is all being designed right now, but this summer we're moving forward with the painting, the lighting, again with a mix of outside contractors for the portion we can't do with our maintenance group, but whatever we can do, we're jumping in there and getting done. The updated equipment, again, that's input from Susan. I'm more involved with the logistics and the installation, but I'm sure she'd be happy to share any equipment that's going in the wrestling room.
Just a touch base to share with that briefly. Obviously, it's a full complement of mats and padding. All safety precautions are in there as well, and just upgrading to the current conditions that we're looking for.
So the high school, middle school softball field, again, this is a project that we've been looking at for a long time, knowing that there were some improvements that we needed to do, and it was time for a bit of a renovation of the field to make it playable, and we don't have grounders popping up in divots, and just making it a more competitive play field. And you see in the top of the list is the engineering and drainage. So it's a very sensitive area. We're very cognizant of that. We've tasked the engineer well in advance of creating our plan that we have to ensure that we, any opportunity to possibly even make it better, that we're going to take advantage of that through the engineering, whether, and that's still in the process, but whether it's retention or changing, how the water sheds, but it's protecting our neighbors as well as the field. But the end result, after doing our walkthrough and speaking with some of the neighbors who had concerns about the fence line and where the path is and accessibility back there, when we're looking at a renovation, that's when we said, it's time to look at every element of this field. So we took a property survey, and it's a slight adjustment of the field, so it's away from the property line, and we could put a path behind there, which will make it much more accessible, less easier to maintain. So we're looking at that cost savings and beautification as well. And this is all to turn into a natural turf surface. So it's going to be a grass field and a clay surface like it is now, but a new hooded backstop. So I'm sure some of the neighbors there are going to appreciate the fly balls, not ending up in their backyard, or at least certainly greatly minimized, and of course a scoreboard. So there's no lighting on the field, so these are daytime games, but it's just a way to make the play experience enhanced. So moving on to the main gym. It's looking back at records. It's been well over 20 years that it's gotten a paint job. So now it's time, and really that relates to the need for replacing the floor. The floor is original from that addition, which we believe is early 60s, and we've maintained it. There's only a certain amount of times you can sand it, and the last sanding was the last one where it starts to lose its integrity in dead spots. So it's time to replace it. But when we're replacing the floor, we're looking at all the elements. The bleachers do have to come out to facilitate the floor replacement. So we're going to tune those up, change any of the cracked ones, update the color, get a more resilient plastic so we don't have breakage again, and then paint the gym. And obviously, if you're painting, you got to look at the lighting. So we looked. So fortunately, we're able to incorporate everything, and starting on the 27th of June, the scaffolds are rolling in, we're protecting, and we're going to begin painting. So that is a phased project. I know we've mentioned this in other presentations related to how we have to maximize our time, but the time is limited. So we never want to take space offline, but that the floor and bleacher replacement is going to be summer of 2025. So we're doing as much as possible this summer. Again, these three major projects are all through the support of the budget, which we're all grateful for.
And I would just say before we move forward, I know Gabby, Rob and I talked, as he mentioned, about sustainability and making sure our operating budget can sustain these projects. So when you see something like a field, it's not a one-shot deal. It's something that we will continue to look to maintain and sustain.
So here's one field that we looked at. This is the high school, middle school upper field. Currently, it's used for PE classes. It's used for gym. It's adjacent for recess. It gets a lot of use. It also is at the point where it needs a little maintenance, laser grading, tilling, and a restoration of the natural surface. So anytime you're looking at retilling it, it's just an opportunity to relook at your drainage. Does it need an investment, improvement, or repair, an expansion of a drain pipe or culvert or something? So that's all incorporated here. The added benefit, as you can see, is just an improved. It's really a well-maintained facility, and it's just an improved experience for students for PE and any other practice sports that are there. So looking at the same field, we're presenting option 2 as a possibility because it can also contribute to, it presents a lot more opportunities, and this would be a synthetic turf field. So with the estimated cost in the second column there. You can see it's significantly higher. And as Dr. Bird mentioned, this is not, no decisions have been made. We just looked at the field and said, well, here's our vision. Has there been, and Susan and I are constantly looking at the field if there's wet weather and practice is canceled, or the teams have utilized it because they're doing well and the practices are going late in the season. There's a mud pit in the middle because the grass gets torn up. So there's limitations that a natural grass field has that would be resolved with a synthetic turf field. So that is included in the added benefits. It's a wet weather friendly field, and it allows further rotation of more teams to practice.
Would you mind, I know this was ranked, you had the ranking on previous pages and how this was at the top as a number 1 to 5. So maybe it would just be nice to illustrate how you think about this. You had all the criteria on how you were ranking everything. So just talking through how you think about this being a priority, or maybe the top 5, or on one of the examples, just maybe walking through the thought process on the prioritization would be helpful.
So Kelsey, I will help jump in on that because it's probably the space that it might be the smallest space, but it's used the most. So at any given time, whether it be during a school day, from my office, I look out and I see community lunch, physical education, recess happening in that space. After school, I see in the fall, all 3 football teams usually in that space. In the spring, lacrosse, rugby on that space. And then after those hours, Rye Recreation, Rye Youth Lacrosse, Rye Recreation's rugby, it's used 7 days a week. And if you were to walk it right now, just to take a peek at it, it's what it's been used all year. It looks like a dirt, just dirt. It's down to the dirt because it's used so much. So when we look at those things I just mentioned, instructionally, it'd be great to have a space that we could do more with. We make a great, to me, it's very efficient, but in wet weather days or when things are questionable, it can take you out there for sure. After school, it's limited who can practice, and really, in the reality of it, we have a wonderful competition space out here, but limited practice space. And really, the practice, to me, philosophically is extremely important, and to not have space where our kids can practice is where the crux of this is, in my opinion. So that is why, from usage standpoint, we really looked at this as being instructional, and interscholastic extracurricular would be a nice fit for number 1.
So the Osborne field is very similar in terms of opportunity. We have a current field that's well utilized, and it reaches a point where you have to flatten it out. There's some seasonal movement, and it creates some lumps and divots in the field. There were stumps removed years ago, and it's time that it needs a bit of tilling and regrading, so which is the lesser cost. And that is just part of owning a natural turf field and restoring it to optimal condition for a grass field. Similar challenges that we have at the upper field at the high school, middle school. That would doing that work would just have it's maintaining what you currently have and maintaining that experience for PE classes and the current school use. Option 2, similar to the previous slide, is looking at the same field with a synthetic installation. However, when we walked through with a few experts who built some other fields, because we solicited input from vendors, contractors, other districts, and looking for the fit that would benefit Rye the most. If there was support for doing a synthetic field there, you could reorient it a little different and incorporate it. So actually change where the baseball diamond is, incorporate it into the turf field, relocate it and have 2 sports on there, or the field would be skewed. So our engineers looking at the potential for added play there. that would be a significant change because it is a larger field, one of the largest fields that we have that is contiguous in the district. And that would, again, when you look at the added benefit there, it's additional sports and just weather-friendly additional practices that I want Susan had a little more light to.
Sure, and the one thing with Osborne that would be a little bit different, you were looking at middle school upper field where instructionally during the day is most, obviously Osborne, we have the same types of environment, just fewer students. That style field, if shifted appropriately, could fit sub-varsity, so a junior varsity or a modified competition versus this would not be a competition available field. This would be a practice facility to an extent.
So the high school, middle school field house, for anyone familiar who's walked back by the brook, there's currently a field house. There's definitely some need for improvement for ventilation there.
Field house is a generous term.
But it could be a diamond in the rough, and that's how we approach it. So with this significant investment that we have listed there, a full HVAC and ventilation overhaul, and there is indoor plumbing, there's heating, there's ventilation. The elements are there. They would all need a lot of attention and upgrade, but it would give the opportunity for public access restrooms, which would that would be a huge change for how we hold many events on the turf field because it's close and accessible, as well as network access. So getting internet connectivity out there would allow teams to come in to view films prior to games right. So that's the athletic component that would be enhanced. Looking at it strictly as a facility director, there's elements in there that at their end of their useful life, especially the roofing, the heating system. But fortunately, there are options now. We know that it is sensitive. It's the closest structure that we have to the brook, but it is on higher ground, and we would look at that, all those improvements with some resiliency. So there's currently there's an underground oil tank, and there's a boiler that's below the water line because there's a steam system. Fortunately, now there's technology that can allow all that to come out, so we could create a space that would be a little more resilient and usable and well ventilated. So option 2 was a plan that we looked at, much earlier in the year, and that is new construction. That is an entirely new field house that would have all the modern elements of a newer structure placed on the upper field adjacent to the building, and that would provide a lot of added benefit that is input from Susan.
So it wouldn't take the field space away from the high school, middle school, upper field. It would wrap around the building, so to speak. When we met with an architect, just to look at the feasibility of the space. We wouldn't want to take away space when we're trying to create space. But the biggest piece with a one-story building would be some of the added features that Rob mentioned, which you could use it instructionally, of course, for physical education and health classes. Our athletic trainers would have a space that would be accessible to our student athletes, student population. Public restrooms are there as well. The nice thing is, while it would be connected and related to the building, it would be separate in a sense from an alarm standpoint. So we use a lot of facilities on the weekend that include this building, and having that option for film, for example, or a conference space where coaches can meet with their student athletes as opposed to internally in the building would be a cost savings in itself, but also from a safety and security standpoint.
So the fitness center is a space that's currently functioning in the high school. It It is also, there's equipment in there that is towards the end of its life, especially with ventilation, that we have to look at as part of our normal maintenance. And if we were to do some of the upgrades, there would be some code-driven requirements. Some of them we just can't replace in kind, and those add significantly to the cost, which is defined there. A lot of that is related to accessibility and ventilation. So although it's currently functioning and used, it would, looking at any typical remote, put you in a different category, so you have to update to the current code. So the added benefit of a renovated fitness center within the building is just, increased access and improved conditions. So it is a small space and it's limited. There's just there's only so much you can do. It's only about 1,200 square feet that is below grade. So Middleton Field, one of the smaller fields, but similar to Osborne. I don't need to go through every point, but there's currently a well-used natural turf field. And again, it's looking at drainage, grading, and restoring a natural turf field and the ongoing maintenance for that. Again, that field hasn't been looked at with that level of attention for a long time. So doing that type of renovation would just improve the experience and make the ground walls go a little straighter instead of hopping. So, option 2 for Milton Field, that is, it is a field that's on much higher ground, and there is potential, if there is a renovation, to look at an artificial turf surface there that, again, if it's well drained and no impact, it would be a field that would just be widely available despite weather conditions, and could be potential practice. As Susan mentioned to me, that although it might not be a competitive field for distance, some of those dimensions can change if you were to do a full renovation, as well as making a practice field, or if there was overlap. It just gives more opportunity for our students and teams. Yeah, next slide, please. So lastly, all the gymnasiums. We did a walkthrough and looked at the conditions of and age of our gymnasiums. The Ride Middle School would require painting, floor resurfacing, bleacher upgrades, wall padding, and continued installation of acoustic panels. There was a big installation that happened and it improved the space. There was, through some support of the PTO, all the wall panels were changed, and I know there was an improvement, but there's still opportunity based on some acoustical studies that we did there. Those improvements would be included in a future upgrade of Ride Middle School gym. The auxiliary gym at the high school is one of our newer gyms, but again, it reaches a point where there's new mechanical equipment like retractable basketball hoops and adventure elements, padding, painting, as well as some bathroom updates. That would, again, that's a space that is well maintained and well utilized, but there can be improvements just with newer equipment that is available. And very similar to the auxiliary gym would be Midlands gym. So we've looked at the floor and the age of the floor. Again, it's holding up very well, but at a certain point, there's only so much maintenance you can do, and we have to kind of look long-term and replacement of the floor. And just like we're doing at the high school now, when that day comes, we have to look at all the elements that should go in the gym when you're replacing that, and that would be retractable hoops, the ceiling and lighting, which would incorporate some acoustic value, and replacing all the wall padding, and some of the storage closet for efficiency, which I'm sure the gym teachers would appreciate, to just make their experience improved as well as for the students. So, and all the gymnasiums, so if anyone's wondering, Osborne is not on here. Osborne is actually in really good shape. Through the last bond project, there was there was roof replacements, and we incorporated some of those elements like leaky skylights that were removed, so we have a solid roof on there, but we included some clear stored windows, so less risky, still adds a natural light. The floor was replaced probably within the last 10 years based on its age, and that's in really good shape. So it's really minor in terms of this study that we did. So.
And I'll just reiterate, these are concepts. No decisions have been made. These are just things for the board to ponder as we move forward in our short and long-term budget plan.
Great. I think that's a wonderful presentation. Do any board members have any questions?
A couple questions. First, I want to say thank you for the presentation. I'm glad you presented the two options because I think that we probably are all in agreement that upgrades and renovations are necessary for these spaces. If anyone's taken a look at these spaces, they are very old and outdated. But my fear is that if we necessarily try to upgrade them, that some of them are in such space-limited areas that we're not going to achieve what we're trying to achieve. So I appreciate you presenting the two options so that we can consider. And I was going to ask, because of these high price tags for some of the options, have we thought about, are we open to looking at private donations to help fund some of these costs? Have we thought about, I know this is just conceptually, but have we brainstormed ideas of how we could?
We haven't gotten to that point yet, but I think that certainly is something we want guidance from the board on. We've not been approached by any donors wishing to support such projects, but this is also the first time we're presenting these publicly after this completion of the study.
Okay, perfect, because I get questions a lot from people of how can we help contribute to the athletic facilities.
There are things, so for example,
I think there's a lot of interest in the community to support these projects, is what I was trying to.
The softball field that we have right now was upgraded a few years ago, not the surface itself, but bleachers and work as part of the donation from the Rye Fund for Education. The Rye Fund has recently approved a partial, they're splitting the cost with Rye Girls Softball for a new scoreboard for that field. So those kinds of things exist within the current projects that are happening, but we have not had any discussions or been approached on any projects.
And then I was going to ask, Susan, will you just reiterate the point about Osborne and Upperfield? Because I get this question too a lot. That the Upperfield is not big enough for soccer and some regulation size fields. Is that right? So teams can practice on it, but we can't actually host games there. Is that right?
Correct. So technically, you can, any sub-varsity, a junior varsity, or a modified game, you could. It wouldn't be a good option. But from a standpoint of National Federation of High School Sports rules, no, you could not have a competition there. With the upper field, it would be utilized as a practice space, as you mentioned, and instructional space. Osborne is closer, where you could have competitions potentially with middle school athletics and possibly junior varsity.
And who uses the Upperfield? You said the rugby team.
So-
do any community
Yeah.
members use the fields? I know like Rice Soccer uses Osborne, for example. So are these community assets that?
So it is used 7 days a week right now. Presently, as we enter fall, for example, I'll use that because we just went over, I met with Aaron Metz from Rye Recreation to go over the fall field usages between the school and the city. And as we were looking at the field space for our athletic programs, there's usually the 3 modified JV and varsity football teams that use it in the fall predominantly. And they pop on the turf whenever possible, which is challenging because of obviously game time in the fall. Rye on Sundays, the youth rugby programs utilize it, and on Saturdays, Rye Youth Lacrosse utilizes it in the fall. And Conversely, in the spring, it's very similar. Our rugby team uses, our boys rugby team uses, our girls rugby is at Midland right now, for example, because we like to have the space and the timing of everything. We moved middle school across to Rye Rep so that their programs later in the day could happen without darkness happening. So in the spring, it's Rye and youth lacrosse. So yeah, 7 days a week.
Just so I'm hearing correctly, so based on Kelly's question, it doesn't sound like, from what we can tell right now, that any of these fields would be competition fields for the high school teams. They could be practice fields. They could, I guess, spread out the use among what now it sounds like the Upperfield is getting a significant amount of use. Osborne's probably getting also a good amount of use. I drive past it every day and I see teams on there all the time. So clearly that's also getting used, but maybe not quite as much as the upper field is.
So correct. So right now at Osborne, from our perspective, it's middle school athletics that predominantly will be their soccer, girls soccer in the fall, and in the spring this year, the boys middle school went to Osborne. We flip-flopped and gave them an opportunity to change up. But yes, so if you looked at a perfect world with the one field we have as a competition field, so to speak, as a game play for our high school student athletes. Just a great example, on a game day, we make all of our games on that field to start at 5 p.m. so we have enough time to split the field into practices. So at 5 p.m. games, say field hockey that goes varsity, field hockey, JV field hockey, no one can practice anywhere but what's available in the city or on the upper field, with some type of practice space, option 1 or option 2, that allows that space to happen. There's a flow over that could create that. And that's the area where it seems we're lacking most, is the practice space.
Okay, thank you.
About how long does a floor last, a gymnasium floor?
Usually about 3 to 4 sandings, and you don't have to sand for about 10 to 12 years. So it could be 40 to 50 years if it's well maintained.
Right? No longer than the floors last of my house. Sorry. Yeah,
You don't have any golden retrievers running around or kids on tricycles, so they tend to last a little longer.
Many things I can work on and improve my floors. Got it. So I do think, and I am intentionally driving the point home that Dr. Byrne is making, in that I think it is really helpful for the board to have this information for informational, long-term strategic planning. There is absolutely nothing that the board is doing or considering or will be doing between now and the next budget cycle, because as we all know, the budget is what determines what we're able to do for the community with the funds that we have available. And I think it's really helpful when we have information well in advance of when a budget is being developed, so we can think about things from a strategic and a total information understanding point. And that's really why you're here tonight, and I really do appreciate it, because June is not an easy time to create presentations and to do things. You have a gazillion other things coming, like Rob's got to get things set up. I think there's something happening Friday maybe on the field that might impact your ability to schedule practices, because I know the fall teams are already gearing up with their practices. So I do think it's really helpful, though, to have this information so far in advance and in such great detail, completely understanding that these dollars that are associated are, at the very bare minimum, a guidance document, and that's it. And so I do really appreciate the information and the opportunity to think about it. I thank the administration for it. And I look forward to being able to have further conversations as a community, as a board, with the administration about where we want to head. And so thank you. Yeah.
One thing to that, I guess for the next time that we're going to be looking at stuff like this, what would be helpful to the question that Jane asked about how long do floors last, to get a sense of where there's a timing aspect to it, what that might be looking like based on your best estimate. So you mentioned that Midland gym floor is probably coming up at some point in the near future, like giving us a sense of what is that timing based on what you understand, so that we can incorporate that into this look at what facilities, the shape they're in, when they might need to have something more focused on them in the near future.
Absolutely. Nothing fails catastrophically like that. These are, it's neglect that turns that way, and it turns to an immediate replacement needed. Nothing is in that condition. A lot of it, when going back to the first slide, our evaluation criteria, it's looking at where we constantly do repairs. So if it's nothing is in that, I wouldn't spring anything on on the business office saying, oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you we need to replace this floor. It would be a series of dead spots and repairs and looking at some trends and saying, okay, we really have to plan because this is becoming an issue. And that applies to all of them across the board. That's, it's roofing, it's windows, it's masonry repairs, and then you plan for it. And I feel like we're consistently coming into the NPR to fix a roof leak. Let's investigate that further. So I think we captured a lot of that, and because we're seeking input from users, from our custodians who are there cleaning it. But yeah, I would share any information I had well in advance, so we're not doing anything under duress.
Thank you.
Sure.
Great. I just wanted to say thanks to Gabby too. Gabby and Rob and I have been working on this for a year almost, I feel like, on and off, and working with Eric's guidance. So thank you, Gabby, too, for putting this together.
Thank you all, very informative. So we will now move on to the hearing of the public on non-agenda items. We welcome and encourage our community members to address the board at this time. Please come to the podium, state your name, address, and if you are representing an organization. To ensure everyone has the opportunity to speak, please limit your remarks to 3 minutes. The board is here to listen. The public comment period is not designed to be a discussion. So please understand that we may not respond publicly to your comments or questions at this time. We take your comments seriously and may need more time to process and research an issue. We will ensure questions will be addressed by the appropriate staff member or possibly answered at a future board meeting. We will not entertain comments regarding individual students or district personnel, as these are protected under state and federal privacy laws. Please know we take personnel concerns very seriously. On these matters, we would ask you to follow the appropriate administrative channels. As a reminder, the community may submit written comments at any time to the board by sending those to rcsdboard@riseschools.org. I will say for those members of the public who may be here for retirement, there will be an opportunity for that at a few more minutes into our meeting. So if you just want to wait, but if anyone is here to speak on anything other than retirement, please come forward. Seeing none, we will move on to the consent agenda. Could I please have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Chris Repetto, seconded by Callie Erickson. Let's take a look at this evening's consent agenda. Consent agenda general. Consent agenda fiscal. Consent agenda professional appointments. Consent agenda classified appointments. Consent agenda pupil personnel services and special education. Consent agenda curriculum instruction and assessment. Okay, seeing no questions, all those who approve the consent agenda? That's 6-0 with 1 absent. So on this evening's consent agenda, we have an agreement with Westchester Community College to offer concurrent course enrollment for our high school students. We have adopted the tax warrant for the 24-25 school year, which is only possible with the support of our community by supporting our budget vote. We are adopting the internal audit report and management responses, which I'm sure the committee chair, Mr. Repetto, will speak to, and communications to him from the board shortly. We are accepting a number of bids for facility operation contracts for general services related to roofing, landscaping, etc., to keep up with those facilities that we just heard about. We are accepting a gift from the Milton PTO in the amount of $98,338.12 to support flexible furniture purchases. The Milton PTO has also generously donated, and we are accepting a gift of $8,000 for furniture for the staff lounge. We are accepting a gift from the graduating class of 2024 in the amount of $5,844.58 for improvements to the high school courtyard. And we have numerous appointments for our extended school year and summer curriculum work because, as we all know, the schools will be closed, our kids will not be here, but our teachers and our staff will continue to work hard all summer long. So we look forward to seeing what will come of that. So now we will move on to presentation and discussion number 2, Mrs. Boyle.
Thank you. So this is our second read of 3 different policies. 2 have remained exactly the same. One was our employee acceptable use, which is 8630, and that was an update with an effort to actually rescind an old policy that was out of date, and it also included some updates regarding multi-factor authentication, which is a cybersecurity update that we are implementing. So those are what those updates are. And then the other 2 policies have to do with graduation ceremonies and diplomas. So diploma and credential options 4773 is exactly what we looked at last week, and it has to do with diplomas for career development and skills achievement. But we did make some changes since our last look at policy 4772, which is graduation ceremonies. In a discussion that we had related to a requirement as part of this policy, we looked into whether or not we needed to adopt the regulation that accompanied this policy. So originally it stated that it was necessary to adopt the regulation. So instead, after having a conversation with our legal counsel, they advised that we could incorporate the information from the regulation into the policy that wasn't already there, and that way we could not have to adopt the regulation, which is typically not something we do, but we could sustain all of the information that was necessary into the policy that was in the regulation. Both were very short documents, so it was a fairly easy transfer. So you'll see some substantive, what seems like substantive additions in here because we included the process for students who were earning their CDOS or SACC diplomas at the end of their graduating year. So does anyone have any questions about those additions to that policy or the others? I didn't get any other feedback from our last meeting. No? Okay. And we will move these forward for adoption at our regular meeting in July. Thank you.
Okay, so now we have our communications to and from the board. And this evening, we are acknowledging the retirement of 2 of our board trustees. So I will begin. Tonight, we will take a few minutes to recognize the board service of 2 of our retiring board members, Kelsey Johnson and Chris Repetto. Get in front of any conspiracy theories. I just want to say that while they both live on the same street and both are retiring tonight, there is no movement by the residents of Center Street to withdraw from the Rise City School District and form their own school district with Chris and Kelsey leading the board. Right? It's not happening, right? Okay. Here we go again. First, I would like to share a few words about our amazing colleague, Kelsey Johnson. Kelsey ran for a seat on the Board of Education in May of 2021 in a field of 8 candidates vying for 3 seats. At this time, the world was still in a place of uncertainty as it dealt with a global pandemic and its impact on everything from toilet paper to education. Kelsey's willingness to step forward during this time and run for the Board of Education was just the first of many times we saw her commitment to public service and public education. As a board member, Kelsey was committed and willing to serve in any way possible. So much so that in her 3 years of service, Kelsey has served on every board committee and acted as a board liaison to every district committee. Kelsey's personal commitment to pedestrian safety has become the board's outward commitment as well. And while Kelsey will leave us, she leaves behind a legacy as the board will now work to try to figure out how we can create our own Board of Ed liaison position to the Rye Traffic and Safety Pedestrian Committee. Because Kelsey cares so much about her work and the kids in Rye, Kelsey is always prepared. When you walk into a meeting with Kelsey, you know that she has done the work. She's read the materials, developed her questions, and has some thoughts on the issues. And while quiet in her delivery and her questions, thoughts and comments are always strong, highlighting her passion for the work and her desire to help make things better. Kelsey's board work made us all better board members. When you have such a dedicated, conscientious, caring member of your team, it is hard to see them go, which is why I tried many times to get her to stay. Kelsey, thank you so much for your service to not only the Rye City School District, but to everyone in Rye. You will greatly be missed. I don't, if you don't have to, if you wanted to say anything, now's the time. She's always prepared, I said she's always prepared.
I have said it a couple times, but this experience for me, it was an unexpected turn for me in my giving back to our community. And I'm so excited for Val and Matt to join this, what I call is just a highly functioning board. And that is due to every single person who comes in with their perspective and their ideas and shares them with this group in collaboration with an excellent leadership team. So it's been my privilege to sit in this seat and learn from everybody here how our community works and how we can be collaborative. And those are all just important skills, and I look forward to continuing to support the district while not sitting at this table, but in many different ways. So thank you, everyone.
So now it is my pleasure to take a moment to speak about Chris Rapetta and his service on the Rye City School District Board of Education. But before I move into my remarks, I know there are a few former board colleagues and others here tonight that may like to say a few words about Chris and their experiences with him during their service together. So please, if you would like to share something, come forward at this time.
Where the camera's still on.
I won't say everything
Oh, see, I was muted, didn't I?
Laura Slack, Chris, you got me to come back to a board meeting. 12 long years. I know some of them were longer than others, but you've been sitting at that seat of seniority for a while now. People probably don't know that we move up in seniority. And the tiebreaker is, you know, alphabetical because it's a school district. But you've been sitting there for quite some time. But I seriously came to thank you for your service to the school district, to the community, to the children of the Rye City School District. It was a privilege to serve with you. And we took a long time to get you to do it, but it was a privilege to know that you did it. And your honesty and your integrity, and that you always valued the kids of the Rice School District and what was going to be best for them, whether that was going to be a hard decision, an easy decision, a popular decision, but that was, you know, a guiding principle, and I was appreciated that. I was appreciated your financial charts that you produced, at least early in your term. I don't know if you're still doing it.
Haven't been needed.
And most of all, I appreciate your humor, because sometimes when things get, you know, a little difficult, we have to make difficult decisions, you can always count on Chris to break it up with a little humor and bring us all back to what we're really there for. So thank you for your service, and again, it's a privilege to serve with you, and the school board and the school district was all the better for your service.
Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Katie Comaine Glassberg. I don't actually live in Rye anymore. But I appreciate your indulgence. Thank you. This is a special occasion. And I wasn't sure this day was ever going to come, actually.
There have been times in the last couple weeks, I think.
But again, as Laura pointed out, 12 years is a very long time to serve, and that is such a commitment to the citizens of Rye. Most importantly, to the young citizens of Rye who come into this building, the other buildings around town, all year long. Chris, among his other contributions, in addition to his sense of humor and his facility with an Excel spreadsheet, includes the fact that he is always, always reasonable, as I'm sure you guys know. And so when you can get involved in a very heated discussion about something, you could always count on Chris to bring the reasonable point of view to the conversation and bring that equanimity back into the room. And it's not that there were so many times where that didn't exist, but it's easy, as I'm sure you all know, for people to get entrenched in a viewpoint strongly. This is important work, and people care deeply about what they're doing as board members. So Chris's reasonableness is core to what he always brought to the table. Also, without getting into specifics, Chris was pivotal in major decisions that helped us as a district realign budgets and teacher pay in a way that was in a tax cap environment, in a way that was equitable for the faculty, which was really important. We had struggled, as many communities had, through years of financial hardship, and finally getting to the moment where we could do that readjustment for salaries for our teachers was crucial, and Chris was pivotal to that project. Because of course, without teachers, you don't have schools. And it's important that people enjoy working in the school district and enjoy working with our students, and you were pivotal to that. There were millions of other opportunities, conversations, contributions that you made, and I won't try to even approach cataloging them here, mostly because I've forgotten several of them already. But it was a pleasure to serve with you. And I would not have enjoyed my service on the Rice State School District Board of Education nearly in the same way without your help and your support and your friendship. Thank you.
Okay, passing the torch as we move down the more senior members at that end and the less senior members at that end. So, I'm Karen Belanger, also having served on the Board of Education with Chris. So first of all, I do want to start by saying I did not serve with you, Kelsey, but thank you truly so much for your service as well. If there's anything that I really admire, it's people stepping up to the plate, which is why I want to say thank you to Valerie and Matt as well. I think this is, I always refer to it as the best volunteer job in our communities. And I know it may not feel like that on many days, but it truly is. And when you go to high school graduation, even though it's going to be boiling hot on Friday, there's nothing like seeing those kids go across the field and realize that you had a part in it. Chris had a huge part in so many things in this district. And I think maybe what I will always recall more than anything is he was somebody who was really truly able to reach out to all the communities and all the stakeholders there. His girls were involved in theater and music, and he knew all the parents in the room every time he went to a performance. His son was involved in athletics, and I'm positive that the same thing was happening with the athletic parents on the field. Chris could walk into any school building and everybody would come up, there would be faculty members, staff members who would always come up and know Chris. He was, in so many ways, a great ambassador for our district and for our board. And yes, I too will miss getting into crazy discussions around what version of CPI they were using to calculate the tax levy cap increase, and how many standard deviations really do make a difference in particular spreadsheets. But I think I really truly want to focus on the fact that you were an amazing ambassador for the board and for the district, and brought so many stakeholders to the board table. Just a word of warning for everybody left on the board. I don't want your meetings to last too long next year, so you're going to have to learn what Chris has ably represented for the past 12 years, which is motion to adjourn. Has been Chris's particular bailiwick. I'm sure that has continued in my absence. So just a reminder, everybody coming who's going to be on the board next year, you're going to have to take up that torch for sure. There are so many other things that Chris will not be able to be replaced. Thank you.
We have prepared something in 5-part a cappella.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I didn't know we'd be given an opportunity to speak. We didn't know, so of course we prepared absolutely nothing.
In case nobody caught on to this, we are Chris's family.
Yes, we do. And but luckily, like my father, I will find a way to come up with something to say even when I have nothing to say. But when you first wanted to join the board, I was so upset. I really didn't want you to. And I was so mad at you because it meant you would be gone another night of the week. And quickly that turned into, oh, is it Tuesday? But yeah, 12 years, fantastic. I'm so proud of everything you've done. I could name so many of your accomplishments, but instead I'm going to move on to something else. My favorite part, of course, was you handing me my diploma. Kellen symbolically his diploma, and Karis soon to be as well. I hope that there's no one else I would want representing our schools and our family. And I hope that at the end of this era means people will stop asking you about things you have no part in. And by extension, me as well. Thank you.
I'd like to thank you for joining the board because prior to you being on the board, I used to have to pay attention to the emails the school sent. And so for 12 years, I've been able to ignore them. And Eric, you're welcome. I'm no longer going to be providing you with my tips on how you can improve the school district. So thank you.
Stuart Tyler.
I'm not going to say something about Chris. I have lots to say about Chris.
The cameras are still on.
Oh, don't worry. Don't worry, it's all right. So tonight, Chris retires after 12 years of board service. For those who, when I talk to members, are not sure who he is, I always say he's the board member who is always quick to support the motion to adjourn the meetings. One might think that Chris's quick motions are reflective of his desire to just be done with this pesky board work, moving us along. But nothing could be further from the truth. Over the last 12 years, which makes him the longest-serving board member in recent memory, and the only board member to support not one, but 2 budget overrides, Chris has been instrumental in moving the district from good to great. Talk to anyone who has served on the board with Chris, and they will tell you that Chris sees the forest through the trees, and does so while staying at least 30,000 feet above. And this is exactly why his work on the board has been so important and vital to the success of the schools. Chris sees a program, a challenge, an issue as part of a system, not an item to attend to. Chris is able to keep the kids of Rye the center of all discussions and to use the work we do here as the main focus. Whether it be helping the community to appreciate the fiscal necessity of the district's budgets, or a capital plan project, or helping to maintain calm in the midst of a global pandemic and its societal uneasiness that followed, Chris is someone the board has always turned to. Chris helps to keep everything in perspective, always asking, what do we need to do for the kids here in Rye? What is best for the Rye City School District? Chris has served on all committees of the board, with the exception of policy.
How did that happen?
Which is weird
Because some other people did that for you. You're welcome, my love.
There's no
I'm not
secret
gonna
to
talking.
I'm good, but I'm not that
So, and it's surprising that he hasn't been on the policy committee, because as we all know, policy is the most fun committee of the board. And Chris is definitely known for being fun and funny. He is also our representative Blacksboro and member of the Snow Lot Advisory. Chris served as vice president of the board for 2 years, and additionally, Chris was on the board when Dr. Byrne was hired. As we've seen over the last 7 years, this has turned out to be truly a great benefit to our community, and I am certain that Chris had a big role in making this happen. So much has been said, and I am sure you are all, and I'm sure you are itching to make that final motion. So I will close by saying, thank you. Thank you for making us a better board. Thank you for helping us to always keep the view from 30,000 feet. Thank you for always focusing on our kids. Thank you for being the kind of colleague we all hope to be. Thank you for always bringing the joy to the work and fun to the table. Thank you for making the experiences of the students in the Rye City School District ones that make such notable difference in their lives. Thank you for everything. It has truly been an honor and a privilege, and personally, I will miss you.
Wow, thank you. I can see this.
After 12 years.
After 12 years, I can see that. Thank you everyone for coming out. This means the world to me. None of this, none of the good board work that we've all done, and I know you will continue doing, matters without an administration like this to make it all, take it all real. They take our good ideas, they put them into action every day. I am amazed, always amazed, continually amazed about your dedication and your abilities to take all of this and put it into action. So thank you, thank you. Laura, 14 years ago, 15 years ago, and 12 years ago when this all started, I said I was going to end more meetings than I had started. I'm proud to see that that has worked in a lot of ways. We've come a very long way, and it's because of everyone here. Thank you all, thank you all. I have learned more than I've taught. I've taken more out of this than I think I put in. It's an incredible place. Jane knows exactly the math. She said, yes, you have to take it. Absolutely. It is incredible service for anyone who's listening. You are dialed in, you are part of the community, you get to see wonderful things, as Karen said. You get to go to graduation every year and win. It's a win every year. That's really it. Thank you so much. I can't believe it. I've been doing this as long as I have. Every year was worth it. And like I said, I've learned more every year than the year prior. So thank you all. It's been a privilege.
We're almost to that point, Kristen. Just a couple of more numbers up, and you know I can talk fast. All right, so we will move on to board members will state their intentions for running for board officer positions.
Anyone?
Mrs. Boyle, do you have something you'd like to share?
I would love for you to remain in the position that you're in. No, so I am happy to say, unless there's someone who is really interested in jumping into this seat and doing a little bit more than maybe what you're doing right now, you know, in thinking about Chris and Kelsey and the time that they've served with us, I've worked obviously with both of them. I can't believe it's 8 years for me now since when I started. And the 3 years from when you started, it feels like we're about 20, so. But to that point, doing this work is always exciting and always interesting, especially as Chris said, with the administration that we have. And I am very fortunate to be able to contribute even just a little bit. So I'm happy to stay as vice president if people feel that they would like me to.
And we will do formal votes of board officers at our reorganization meeting, so.
If I was there, I would vote for you. All
right. So for those for board president? Okay, seeing none. I am certainly more than fortunate to have been able to serve in this position as president of the board for the past 2 years, and to work with an administration that I would put up against any administration. And I can say that having worked for and with board administration or district level administrations. And I do. I love what we do. And so I am happy to continue to do it if you're happy to continue to have me do it. And all of my crazy nonsense that comes with that. So y'all know what you're getting at this point.
Yeah.
So we will discuss further at our reorganization meeting. All right. So we will now move on to board and district committee updates. Looks like that policy meetings, again, Chris, there's a chance for you to get one last time in June 21st coming up, just in case if you wanted to. Maybe? Yeah, probably not yet, but we will. But in lieu of attending policy, would you please, as a final duty of audit committee chair, share a little.
The audit committee, man.
Yes.
You were there, you want to give it?
I don't want to take it from you.
We, in our last audit committee meeting, we got the report from our internal auditors. And like I've said, every year, I think for the, I don't know, maybe this now for a while, the audits go better and better every year. They really become educational. There's feedback time for Gabby and her crew to talk to the internal auditors. Again, there were no material findings in anything this year. Some great feedback. I'm always impressed when we're going through the audit report in the meeting and the auditors have a suggestion and Gabby and team have already implemented. Or we're the ones who came up with the suggested response, and we saw more of that this year. The area of internal review this year was revenues, and it went extraordinarily well. It was a great report, again, of the material. I think overall, if you go through the audit report, they risk rate everything. Our risk stayed exactly the same. Again, no material changes, nothing moved in any way. Again, it was a pretty stellar audit report. Yeah, do you have anything you want to add from the takeaways from that? I don't know if there's anything I missed. But I think it was pretty much really super clean.
In case you find yourself looking that you want something to do, you can always show me on the committee.
Oh, that reminds me, I forget that, hey, we have some amazing community members on that who actually are others in their professional lives and do this work, and they are incredibly helpful. They're always extraordinarily involved and they have great questions. So chairing that board is super easy because of the volunteers we have and all the people we have.
Thank you. Thank you for everything.
Great. So this takes us to the point in the meeting where we said our next meeting, our next public meeting rather, will be on July 11th, at which time we will have our reorganization meeting. But this evening, we will actually be adjourning into executive session. So can I have a motion, please, to accept a motion? Yes, we will not be returning to the public. So can I have a motion to accept an adjournment into executive session? Chris Repetto, seconded by Kelsey Johnson.